The X-Zone radio and TV show is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone radio and TV show or in any manner endorsed by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, Talkstar Radio Network, its affiliated stations, or employees.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
You're so hypnotizing. Could you be the devil? Could you be an angel? Your touch magnetizing. Feels like I am floating. Leaves my body glowing. They say, be afraid. You're not like the others. Futuristic lovers. Different DNA. They don't understand you. You're from a whole other world. A different dimension. You open my eyes, and I'm ready to go. Lead me into the light. Kiss me, infect me with your love and fill me with your poison. Take me, take me. Wanna be a victim, ready for a passion. But you're an alien. Touch somebody.
And welcome to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. For the next 4 hours, I'm your host and your guide as together we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X-Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X-Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern, right here on the Talkstar Radio Network, X-Zone Broadcast Network, UK High Definition Radio, Euro High Definition Radio, Star Cable, and our growing family of broadcast affiliates right across Canada, the United States, the Caribbean, Central America, South America, the Pacific Rim. We've got Asia, India, Africa, and Europe. If you'd like to give us a call toll-free worldwide, 1-800-610-7035. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com, and our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. Don't forget, this coming Friday, September the 9th, the X-Zone 9/11 Tribute Edition of the September issue of the X-Chronicles newspaper will be available with the compliments of our advertisers at www.xchronicles-newspaper.com/publisher. Also, February 17, 18, and 19, I'm the Master of Ceremonies at the Body, Soul, and Spirit Expo being held at the International Centre in Mississauga, Ontario. For more information on that, mindbodyspiritexpo.com. My first guest tonight, Exo Nation, is a gentleman who's written a very interesting book entitled Out of Place in Time and Space, Inventions, Beliefs, and Artistic Anomalies that were impossibly ahead of their time. His name is Lamont Wood, and as a journalist and freelance writer of wide experience, Lamont Wood is familiar with the sometimes arbitrary distinction between cause and effect, and the subsequent gulf between what happens, what is experienced, what gets written, and what is understood. He has been freelancing for nearly 3 decades, writing for publications ranging from American Heritage to trade journals in Hong Kong. He has also been a newspaper reporter, publicist, a welder, and he presently lives in San Antonio, Texas. Joining me now is Lamont Wood. And Lamont, welcome to the X-Zone.
Glad to be here.
Out of Place in Time and Space. What was your inspiration for writing this book?
Well, I was always sort of a history buff, and as a journalist, I've often noticed that facts are often debatable. People say things, and what really happened, you're not really sure. And when you look at history, you discover that there's a timeline that people kind of create after the fact. But if you look deeper, you can often find things that kind of fly in the face of that. And so I began collecting these examples of such events. And I came up with the high concept of reverse anachronism. I kept finding things that really kind of defied the whole idea of a linear concept of history and human development, or technological development, certainly. The prime example is the one I lead off with in the book. It's a painting that's been hanging in a museum in France for probably centuries now. It's painted in 1460. It's a fairly conventional church picture showing the Christ child on the lap of the Madonna. And until the last few decades, no one paid any attention to what the Christ child is depicted as doing, although nowadays we kind of relate to it. The Christ child appears to be playing with a pull-string flying toy helicopter. That's kind of weird for 1460.
It certainly is. And you and I have to take our first commercial break here, Lamont. We'll be right back talking more with Lamont Wood. He's the author of Out of Place in Time and Space, and it's available at Amazon.com. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Don't go away.
Hit it. This ain't no disco. It ain't no country club either. This is LA. All I wanna do is have a little fun before I die. There's a man next to me out of nowhere. It's apropos of nothing. He says his name is William. I'm sure he's Bill or Billy or Mac or Buddy.
And welcome back, everyone. Lamont Wood is my special guest. We're talking about Lamont's new book. It's entitled Out of Place in Time and Space, Inventions, Beliefs, and Artistic Anomalies That Were Impossibly Ahead of Their Time. It's available at Amazon.com. Lamont, we were just talking about one of the, a picture that is in your book, on your book, about the Madonna with Christ, and it looks as if the child Christ is playing with some sort of helicopter, and that is totally out of time and space.
Yeah, the painting was made in 1460, and it's obviously a little flying toy helicopter, although conventional history says the helicopter was invented in 1906 with flying models no earlier than about 1784. So this predates it by several centuries. Doing the book, though, I ran across this theme that seems to hold true anywhere you go. Toys are too frivolous for people to pay attention to. And here we have a flying machine, and no one's apparently investing any interest in it. I discovered the Greeks and Romans had steam-powered toys, although it apparently never occurred to them to do anything serious with them. Of course, we know the Europeans later founded the Industrial Revolution on slightly larger steam engines. But again, they were apparently seen as frivolous toys. And of course, there's the usual stories about the wheeled toys found in tombs of Central American civilizations that did not themselves use wheeled transportation. So that was, of course, presumably because they didn't have good roads and draft animals. And of course, we can sit here and say, gosh, they were stupid. But, I think a better lesson would be to think, maybe we should pay attention to what the kids are doing.
Exactly.
What's going on right now under our noses,
It certainly is an eye-opening for all of us. And, it seems that there has been so much in our past that relates to our present and our future, and I don't understand why more of this hasn't been coming forth, and it's thanks to you and other people that we've had on the show, like, Dr. Jonathan Gray, just to name one, that is bringing the hidden archaeology along with Michael Cremo that says, wait a minute, hold on. This is really nothing new, guys. This was known about way back when, and I often wonder why we chose to ignore it.
Well, there's the big difference between the current situation and previous civilizations is that nowadays science is seen as a sort of public institution, and what scientists, professors do are supposed to be for the common good. And also, we have a pretty thriving publishing industry where that can really get the information out there.
Right.
In previous eras, and in probably some corners of the world nowadays, such things were considered trade secrets invariably, and people trained a couple of apprentices with what they knew to support them in old age, and beyond that, no, it did not leave the family. So, and really big projects were usually state secrets. I give a couple of chapters to Archimedes, who apparently was given control of defense planning for the city-state of Syracuse, as we know from the account by the Romans who attacked the place in 212 BC. Now, there are accounts of what happened next in the works of three different ancient historians, Greek and Roman, and apparently based on first-hand eyewitness reports, and they relight science fiction. They launch a daytime attack and find themselves tracked by indirect missile fire coming over the walls from the far side. This implies, tracked them all the way to the foot of the walls, which I didn't think was possible. This implies carefully calibrated catapults, for one thing, accurate rangefinders, and central fire control. You don't see that until about 1912 with European armies. Then they returned for a night attack and brought their ships up against a seawall. And as they did so, they report these large machines kind of reared up on the other side of the wall and extended these booms out over the water, which grabbed their ships and sank them. Now, that does sound like science fiction, but like I say, it's repeated over and over again, and it's apparently what he managed to build would resemble modern construction cranes, where you have the upright arm and then the horizontal arm. Yeah, presumably using repurposed naval equipment. I mean, it was a naval power in eastern Sicily at the time. And Archimedes, he leaves quite a body of scientific writing. None of it involved saying anything about practical machines or military applications, but they do involve topics like how to establish the center of gravity for a ship, which of course is good to know if you want to go around capsizing them, and how to establish the volume of a curved object. Of course, a ship's hull is curved. Once you establish its volume, you know how heavy it is. And also something on parabolic shapes, which would be interesting if you were going to build huge mirrors to set fire to the enemy ships. And we also have reports of him doing that, the so-called death rays.
Yes, that's right.
Admittedly, modern attempts to recreate that have not been totally successful. You can maybe start some charring or stuff, but not something that the enemy sailors couldn't counteract with wet canvas and buckets or something. But I have to point out that setting fire to the enemy might have been a secondary concern. I mean, they were besieged. They probably wanted their blockade runners to get in and out of the harbor. And a good way to help them do that would be to blind the enemy picket boats with these massive solar mirrors. And in fact, while I was doing research on this, I happened to be watching one of those celebrity news moments on TV, and they were talking about Jennifer Aniston having her birthday party on the beach in a fancy Mexican resort in the southern end of Baja California, and the paparazzi are bobbing out there just beyond the surf. And so to keep them at a distance, the management got people out there lining the beach holding large mirrors, and they're reflecting them in the face of the paparazzi. Now, what if both sides had been armed, and you really wanted those people to not come ashore or drive them away somehow? Well, the mirrors might do that, you know what I mean?
That's right.
If the stakes were a little higher, it might be even more worthwhile to do that. So, and have even bigger mirrors. So apparently that's what he did. So, Jennifer Aniston, ancient Sicily, it all goes together somehow, But together my book, anyway.
Yeah. You know what? I loved going through your book. It raised a lot of questions. And I noticed in your book that you were saying that Jules Verne predicted the Apollo program a century in advance.
Yes, and that is one of the anachronisms in there that I found really difficult to explain or get a handle on, or or even accept at some level. I mean, he wrote a book in 1865 depicting an American program to send 3 men to the moon in an aluminum capsule. They're launched from Florida. They circle the moon. They return to Earth. They land in the Pacific Ocean and are picked up by the U.S. Navy. Now, does any of that sound familiar?
It sounds dead on.
Yeah, absolutely dead on. Yeah, taking a sort of a metaphor, he even gets down to the level of politicians from Texas making trouble because they were demanding involvement in the project. Now, that's why Mission Control is located in Houston, because that did actually happen.
That's right.
The technology he uses, of course, is out of 1865. It's had him shot out of a cannon because, he didn't know anything about rockets. They wouldn't have worked in 1865. Cannon wouldn't have worked either, but he glosses over that.
Wait a second. Now, McGill University in Montreal uses a cannon to fire objects high up into the atmosphere.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It could work like something in orbit.
Yes,
but 3 men, no, they wouldn't survive. Trust me.
No, I do trust you on that, and I agree with you. But it's amazing that he had this foresight. Is it possible that, without knowing it, Jules Verne may have had the same abilities as other people from the ancients, like Nostradamus, to see or to anticipate what might happen in the future?
I can't. This would indicate that he could, frankly. Now, he went on and after this, he went on and wrote about 50 other novels, some of which were science fiction and did include technological predictions. Most of those, however, were obviously extensions of what existed during his lifetime, such as fax machines and cars and air conditioners, et cetera, et cetera. And he didn't get to a lot of things that we now consider normal, such as radar and radio, stuff like that. So if it worked in this case, if he did manage to pick up something from the future, I can't say he didn't, because it is obvious, very convincing. I'm a little bothered that what happened after that? What else was that? Why didn't he write something else?
True.
So anyway, that's all I can say. I mean, I don't have a rational explanation for this one. I do for there's like 42 examples in the book, and for many of them, I do have some kind of rational explanation. This one, no, I can't. I fall short on this one. If you want to say he could see the future and without consciously knowing it, well, I can't argue otherwise. Something obviously happened and produced something that is just jaw-droppingly
Wasn't he credited with something to do with modern day submarines?
Oh, well, in one of his other novels called 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, he does describe something that sounds an awful lot like a nuclear-powered submarine, the Nautilus. He himself does not use that term, though. He says it's some kind of chemical reaction with the sodium that was derived from seawater. Now, you could do that, but you would need more energy to get the sodium out than you would derive from it or something. But anyway, so no, he does not actually predict nuclear power, but he does predict a submarine that can stay out there pretty much indefinitely.
Fascinating. Lamont, you and I have to take a news break. We'll be right back. Thank you very much for joining us, and I love your book. A great book, Exo Nation. Hey, Christmas is coming down the tubes. This would be a real super book for people who listen to the X-Zone around the world. The name of the book is Out of Place in Time and Space, Inventions, Beliefs, and Artistic Anomalies That Were Impossibly Ahead of Their Time. My guest this hour is Lamont Wood. He is the author, and this book is available at Amazon.com. We'll have to put it on the X-Zone Christmas website. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break. My Lord, I just did a commercial for Christmas. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break. Don't go away with the news.
Just have some fun. I got a feeling I'm not the only one. All I wanna do is have some fun.
You're listening to the X Zone Radio Show, live and around the world on the Talkstar Radio Network, X Zone Broadcast Network, UK High Definition Radio, Euro High Definition Radio, and Star Cable. Our toll-free telephone number worldwide is 1-800-610-7035. Our email address, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com, and our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com.
Try to understand, try to understand, try to understand. I'm a magic.
Bring the wind to carry me over, lead me home to my town. Tell me when that breeze is blowing, taking me home to my town. When I think of you, Scotia, there's a love that just bleeds in my heart. In my childhood days, we went our different ways, but you knew that we'd never part. Now I'm all alone, and you're calling me home. You knew our love could never.
And welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. My guest this hour is Lamont Wood, and he's the author of a great book. I thoroughly enjoyed reading this book, Lamont. It's an easy book to read, and this is the kind of book where you read a chapter, you put it down and say, After you finish your pondering, you pick the book up again and continue the read. It's a great read, X Zone Nation. The book is entitled Out of Place in Time and Space, Inventions, Beliefs, and Artistic Anomalies That Were Impossibly Ahead of Their Time, and this book is available on Amazon.com. And I'd like to thank the good people at Warwick and Associates for helping make this interview happen. Lamont, in your book, we also saw topics on UFOs. And is it true that there are medieval and Renaissance church paintings that show what people could interpret as flying saucers?
Absolutely. In fact, there's no end to them, really. But when you look at it and you see a flying saucer in there, I have to point out that what you're doing is taking your modern visual vocabulary and imposing it on somebody who had their own visual vocabulary, rather rich, extensive one, in fact, and assuming that theirs agrees with yours. Now, we can't sit here and absolutely prove that, no, they didn't. This is not based on anything they saw in the sky. But when you do the research, you realize that there is, like I say, a theme going on, a sort of visual vocabulary that does often end up putting circular things in the sky. And they're not talking about flying saucers. By and large, they are doing rather fancy illustrations for Bible stories. And many of these include some kind of divine presence. Like the first one I lead off with, which is Jesus and John the Baptist and the Virgin Mary at the Nativity, and in the background there's something that looks vaguely disc-like, and there's someone on the ground with sheep marveling at it. Well, of course, that's the shepherds in the Nativity story who encounter the heavenly host at night and are amazed. So, if you're an artist, how are you going to depict the heavenly host in the sky? Well, they have something that's round with golden rays coming out of it.
Something like an Ezekiel's wheel.
Yeah, something like that. Okay. And something round, something vortex is in the sky is a fairly common, like say, part of their visual vocabulary. I think it started with Dante's book. He actually describes an angelic vortex as the narrator approaches paradise. So I assume that's what he got, because it keeps showing up. And if you look, like I say, if you look closer, you usually find other elements of a particular Bible story. For instance, the 1710 Dutch painting of the baptism of Christ, and it shows something again round up in the sky, and there are rays coming down. if you can get the original, I had to pay for it, the original high-res version from the museum that owns it in England, you can see that there's the little white dot up there is actually a dove. Well, that's right out of the Bible story.
That's right.
The spirit of the God descended on him like a dove. And again, how else are you going to show a divine presence?
So it would seem that a lot of what we are taking as one thing, when you actually do the research and see the high-res photos like you do, it's totally different, because what we're doing when we see something like this is putting our own interpretation on it and not the interpretation of the person who actually did the art piece.
Right. Like I say, these were expensive projects done on commission for churchmen who knew what they wanted, and if the artist didn't supply that, he wasn't going to get painted. I mean, he's not just throwing out, stuff that he happened to see, or felt was otherwise trying to express himself. There's no self-expression involved in any of this. This is, like I said, this is all done on commission.
So the old saying, "The customer is always right,was even in play way back then.
Well, back then the customers could have you burned at the stake. Keep that in mind. So, it's the one thing I would have to agree with the UFO believers, there's nothing in there by accident. Everything that is depicted in there is for a reason. But for their reason, not for ours. Keep that in mind.
Now, Lamont, in your book, you also have a number of examples, and we talked about a few of them with Jules Verne about making accurate predictions about the future. Now, did any of these people profit from their prophecies?
That is an odd thing I kept running into when I was doing research on this, is that no. You would think accurate prophecy would be, the ticket to a career success.
Yeah.
But no, it was just more of an indication of what that person was obsessed about. Yes, I found several examples, convincing examples of people who correctly foretold the future, and it did them no good whatsoever. Good example would be Hector Bywater, who wrote a book in the 1920s describing a war between in the Pacific between the U.S. and Japan, and describes a successful Japanese offensive that begins with a surprise attack, and a long-term U.S. counteroffensive based on island hopping that eventually gets to the point where they can bomb the Japanese mainland and then the Japanese cave in. Does any of that sound familiar?
Sure does. It sounds like a rehearsal for Pearl Harbor.
Yes, and in fact, he has fairly detailed depictions of battles and campaigns, and he mentions actual ships, some of which show up in World War II. That's what got my attention. But of course, that's because some of those ships are still around, or they recycled names. But and of course, he's not totally accurate because, like the opening surprise attack is on the Panama Canal rather than Pearl Harbor. Well, that would have made sense, And in his version, it's just between the U.S. and Japan. It's not part of a larger world war. And the final bombing of the Japanese cities only involves propaganda leaflets, and this leads to a political crisis. If only that had happened.
Yes.
So, but taken as a general outline, he had it nailed. Now, of course, he was a naval journalist who was an expert on naval matters, so he was basically writing this to show that such a war would be painful to both sides.
Is it possible then?
As far as what's that?
Is it possible then that someone from the Japanese Imperial Navy actually read his book and said, you know what, we could take this plan and actually apply it to what they did in Pearl Harbor?
That absolutely did happen.
It did?
Yes. Yamamoto not only read this book, he made a point of meeting the author at a naval conference, and is known to have lectured about it at various Japanese naval academies.
Look at that.
Apparently, he only read the first half. No, he must have read the whole thing because we know he was getting kind of disheartened when the offensive didn't lead to victory, and he saw the counterattack pretty much coming to life as predicted in the book. And he was trying to do something about it in early '43 when he started a inspection tour of various Japanese bases, when he was ambushed and shot down by long-range U.S. fighters. Now, That's not in the book, but you're talking about someone not profiting from their prophecy. He Bywater went on and drank himself to death, basically. So maybe he saw a little too much. Actually, we don't really know. But he did not. This didn't help him, basically.
Another fascinating part of your book that I thoroughly enjoyed was about the steam age computer revolution.
Oh yeah, and you have to. I think the lesson from that is that certain types of people, or maybe humanity in general, harbors a deep-seated hunger for computational power, and once it's there, we'll find some use for it. And there were a couple of people in the 1820s and 1830s who actually tried to build a mechanical mainframe computer. And it would have been fed data on punched cards, would have produced printed output. The whole thing would probably have been the size of a tennis court and would have needed probably a little steam engine to run it. But modern analysis shows it probably would have worked. What stymied them was a common problem we see nowadays with the computer revolution going full blast is what you call creeping featureism. And if you see this in any project you're involved with, you better start blowing some whistles. You get something reasonable in terms of plans and goals. You start working on that, and then you come up with new ideas that you have to add to it, and that forces you to stop and replan everything and start over. And then you go on for a while, and then you come up with some new ideas that you try to cycle into it. And if you keep doing that, you will never finish. And that is basically what happened to these people, except the British government, mercifully, I think, pulled their funding in the end. The British government was interested in some way of producing reliable navigation tables, logarithmic tables, because it was really hard to produce them by hand, as was then done. But if you could do it by machine, it would have been enormously beneficial, because, of course, the British economy is based on maritime navigation in the end.
Also in your book, I was reading a chapter entitled Sirius and the Dogon, and that's part of the Practices, Beliefs, and Knowledge section of your book. Please tell our listeners about that. Okay,
well, that's sort of an urban legend I keep running across, and I looked into it, and it turned out basically it's noise. It's out of place in time. It fits in there, and that the belief of that this happened is out of place. It didn't actually happen. There is sort of an urban legend that this tribe in Mali had detailed knowledge about the star Sirius being a double star. Now, the thing about that, you can't look up there at Sirius with the naked eye and distinguish that it's a double star. You need a fairly nice telescope to do that. And its companion wasn't discovered until 1852 with one of the largest telescopes that was in use. So anyway, it tries people out at night in the desert. They get a very pretty view of the sky, but they could not distinguish Sirius B. So the fact that an ethnographer just came up with these tales from someone, I think it was in the 1940s or 60s and 60s, told a lot of people that, they must have got it from the Egyptians, who must have had more astronomical knowledge than we knew. Well, the Egyptians didn't have telescopes either that we know of. And if they did, they didn't use them for anything we would use them for. And if they did somehow get knowledge about Sirius being a double star, we're not sure how that ended up in Mali, which is in the other side of Africa. So later attempts by ethnologists to replicate this came up blank. No, they couldn't find anyone there who knew anything about it. And again, the naked eyeball is completely insufficient. You cannot look up there and tell that Sirius is a double star. An example would be if you ever, do you know the Big Dipper?
Yes.
For instance.
Yeah.
Okay. The second star in the handle of the Big Dipper is a double star. Have you ever noticed that?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Well, those two stars are 60 times farther apart than Sirius A and B, but you can just barely distinguishing those two stars in the Big Dipper is usually considered a sign of good eyesight if you can do that, or at least not bad eyesight. And like I say, they're 60 times farther apart than Sirius A and B, and Sirius A is like hundreds of times brighter than Sirius B. So if they were separated a little more, you still couldn't distinguish them. So that turned out to be noise. That turned out to be an urban legend. You have to remember also that people from Mali had been serving in the French army since before World War One. So obviously, there's plenty of opportunity for cross-cultural contamination. One of those people, obviously some of them went to college and were exposed to Western astronomy.
All right, you and I have to take our final break for this hour. Lamont, stand by, and thanks very much for joining us. This book, X-Zone Nation, is a must for your library. It's entitled Out of Place in Time and Space, Inventions, Beliefs, and Artistic Anomalies That Were Impossibly Ahead of Their Time. My guest this hour is the author of this great book, Lamont Wood. It's available at Amazon.com, and just some of the chapters, let me just see, in the Machines Physical or Described, we've got Romans versus the Machines, Romans versus Death Rays, Roman Steam Engine, the Steam Age Computer Revolution Under Buildings, the Sphinx as an example, Artifacts Out of Time, Really Lost Penny, Kenwick Man. And like I said, this book is just filled with photographs and information that is just going to make you scratch your head and say, I wonder what they knew that we didn't know, and how come we had to reinvent it? All this and more when the X-Zone returns with my special guest, Lamont Wood, from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell, and we'll be back after this break. Don't go away.
Carry me over, lead me home to my town. Tell me when that breeze is blowing, taking me home to my town. Some men climb a mountain, some men swim the sea, some men fly above the sky. They are what they must be. But baby, the rain must fall. Baby, the wind must blow. Wherever my heart leads me, baby, I must go. Baby, I must go. I do not love...
X-Zone Nation, my guest this hour is the author of Out of Place in Time and Space, Inventions, Beliefs, and Artistic Anomalies That Were Impossibly Ahead of Their Time. Lamont Wood is his name, and this book is available on Amazon.com. First of all, thanks very much for being with us, Lamont. It's a great pleasure talking to you, and as we were saying off air, we'll have to get you back because there's so many other things I'd love to talk to you about, but an hour goes by so fast here in the X-Zone. But there is something I'd like you to talk to our listeners about. In the books, movies, and computers section of your book, Chapter 32, The Internet in 1945.
Right. Oh, yes. That was another freaky thing. Vannevar Bush had been President Roosevelt's science advisor during World War II and had grappled with the development of things like the atomic bomb, jet airplanes, radar, et cetera, et cetera. And in 1945, he wrote a magazine article basically complaining that the paper-based information management systems then available were inadequate for the task at hand, as he should know. He's probably drowning in it. And then he proceeded to describe what he would like to see in terms of information management, which would be some kind of mass electronic storage. He envisioned like high-density microfilm, but something that would allow him to call up things selectively and show it on the screen, and then mark its location and save them as links, and then assemble those links, which he would then comment on and pass to other people. And he envisioned a desk with the built-in storage, a keyboard, maybe 2 displays, and these controls for going through the information, and a scanner, and maybe a little printer just for the microfilm. And you can, and obviously, he's talking about the World Wide Web. He didn't know it at the time, but when you can call up his magazine article and read it online, it's an eerie experience realizing he's talking about what you're doing right then, because you have called it up with a link,
Yes.
and you're reading it on your desk with this translucent screen, and you have these controls that go back and forth, just like he said. You could save the link if you wanted to, and send it to other people. And of course, you presumably have a keyboard, et cetera, et cetera. Now, he assumed it would all be built into this fancy desk he called a Memex, and it would be updated once a month with journal and magazine articles sent to the mail. He didn't envision a network, per se. Although, in later versions, I'm told he did figure there would be some kind of maybe a fax interface. Stuff would be sent to you by fax machine.
Unreal. So like I was saying earlier, it seems that the inventions of today that we think are so miraculous and so new apparently are part of our past. And I want to thank you so much for joining us, Lamont. It's been a great pleasure talking to you. We'll have you back on in the future. And I can't wait until you and I talk the next time you visit us here in the X Zone. Take care of yourself, and thanks very much.
Okay, well, thank you.
All right, X Zone Nation, this was a great hour. Once again, out of place in time and space. Our guest this hour was Lamont Wood. His book is available at Amazon.com. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news at 6.5 minutes past when we talk to Dr. Louis Turry, who is a modern-day Nostradamus. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. Don't go away.